I'm confused how that rebuttals the point. I'm so used to the live starting really energetically that it's throwing me a little bit, that it's a nice slow build-in, but I think that's kind of needed at the moment. Astra and Annie, welcome in. Might be a quiet one, Kitty. Might be right. Yeah, so that's something that is inclusive of generational trauma, if that's what you're talking about, whereby there would eventually be a generation where obviously they would be brought up in an equitable society. Indeed, Kaza. But here we've managed to get a little bit of a build up to it. Might never get there, which is good, but who knows? Who knows? Dan the man. Age and pronouns, please.
I only heard pronouns. What was the other question? And
Age.
he, him.
Age, please.
25.
Thank you. Which prompt do you disagree with?
The lattermost one.
The men also believe it's all men until no men?
Yeah.
Okay, what do you want to say about it?
Oh, I don't think that men believe it's all men until it's no men. That's
Okay.
really all I have to say about it.
Do you think that there are men of your age or even potentially a bit younger that would have an issue, thanks Owen, with their girlfriends going clubbing without them?
There was like a scream, so I didn't hear you.
All right, do you think that
Sorry.
there are men your age or even a bit younger that would feel uncomfortable with their partners going clubbing without them?
Yeah.
Okay, what do you think some of the reasons would be for that? Like,
It
give me-
increases the likelihood they'll get cheated on.
Okay, so that's an insecurity of their own relationship. Anything else?
Yeah, that would be about it. Yeah.
So you don't think that there are any men out there that worry about how men could put something in her drink or could harass her or could approach her, be inappropriate? You don't think any men out there are worried about that?
Not a large majority, no. Probably a few, but like most, probably not. I mean, I've never worried about it.
You haven't,
Personally.
no. I disagree with you that there's only a small amount of men out there that feel that way. I think a lot of men don't like it when their girlfriends go clubbing without them.
Oh, no, I agree with that, yeah. But I just think it's because it increases the likelihood they'll get cheated on.
But then that's
I don't think it's for the other reason.
Then, so that's just a different claim, which is then that a lot of men are insecure in their relationships.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay. Do you think there are a lot of men out there that would prefer to have a woman babysit their 3-year-old or 4-year-old son in comparison to a man or a daughter even?
Probably, yeah.
Why?
Probably because they think that's women's job.
So misogyny then, okay.
Yeah, that probably is just sexism, yeah.
Cool. So then all men until no men, you've just admitted that all men until no men, like that many men would probably think that way because of misogyny. So there we
Well,
are.
no, sexism, not misogyny, but yeah.
Well, if it's towards women, then that's misogyny.
No, if it's sexism towards women, that's just sexism.
Again, it's still misogyny. You're saying
It's
that
not
this
hatred.
is a woman's job?
Yeah, that's not misogyny. Misogyny is hatred or contempt for.
Or prejudice, yeah, judgment. So
No,
judging,
prejudice is sexism.
judging prejudice is in the definition of misogyny.
No, it's not.
It is.
Google is free, so anyone
Yeah.
can look it up.
Well, if you know what misogyny is, you know you just described it. So it's not really about Google, is it?
I mean, you can Google the definition.
Oh, sure, yeah,
That's
I've
what
got
I'm
it right
saying.
here.
Yeah.
Misogyny is the hatred of contempt for or prejudice against women or girls. It didn't take long. I did say it in the definition, but you didn't believe me. I had to look it up and repeat the same words. So, yeah, that's the definition.
What dictionary?
Well, take your pick. Go find any. It will be there. This is not a debate, by the way. So, if you don't even know what misogyny is, then we're going to struggle to have this conversation. Cool. We can leave it there then. Like, if you admit that men would feel uncomfortable with babysitting their daughter, but you think the reason is because it's a woman's job. Oh, it doesn't. It literally says hatred of, contempt for, or prejudice against women and girls. So, literally, got it right here. See that? Prejudice. It's really not difficult. But okay. Sure. No, it's actually Wikipedia. Like, again, it's there. You know, I can zoom in on the word for you. There you go. Look, prejudice. So, yeah, could get all the resources up if you like, but it will still be there. Anyway, Sarah, how you doing? Good to see you. Doing very well, thank you. So Luna, I don't personally think so. I used to, not even long ago, really. But I think holding on to concepts like masculinity and femininity is more harmful than helpful. Appreciate it, Sarah. Yeah, I did hit a biggie with I think it's on 1.3 million at the moment. So yeah, just after our chat as well about about how unlikely it is that videos seem to pop off like that. I saw your video as well in regards to the prejudice. No, not prejudice. I think you were saying about the patriarchal. What's the word? Like even leftist men or something. Leftist men still upholding patriarchy, I think. Yeah, I thought that was an interesting video actually. I did watch that. So the only thing that's happened with this live is I changed the prompt. I don't know. I'm not seeing that many that are. Maybe. Oh, so it's under the guise that they don't think men are being treated equally? This isn't causing division. This is recognizing how the divide has already been created and upheld by men. So, yeah. Indeed, Lydia, indeed. So these prompts will be explained when men come up who disagree. Bullfrog. When we actually like go as a deep dive into it, it is rooted in that. Victoria, it was about being called out on misogynistic views years ago, and then just went and did education research, spent time in women's spaces, listening, learning, and thought that would be a good way to try and educate men, or good use of TikTok as a platform. Royal, inappropriate comment, not needed. I'm going to drop you a mute because your comments are not at all what we are looking for in this live space. Lead with respect or lead yourself out. It's very simple. Appreciate it, Sarah. Good to see you. So Mika, if you, again, deep dive it, we can go back to understanding how masculinity was sort of framed in a way that it looked like a positive, but was done through misogyny. So holding on to that masculinity is holding on to the roots of misogyny. Yeah, Bullfrog, what you've just described there doesn't necessarily mean that's what masculinity is. Like, loving and supporting women is great. That doesn't necessarily now make you masculine for it. That just makes you respectful towards people. Mika, yeah, if men did, not so much dismantle, but detach. If men detach away from the ideology of masculinity or the concept of masculinity, which is actually quite easy to do from an individualistic point of view, right? But a lot of men come in and start talking about the way that society makes masculinity something society collectively agrees. And it's like, yeah, but we also know how society in the past have upheld and done things collectively, which has led to, all the oppressive groups experiencing oppression, right? So we have to look at the ways in which we are holding on to things that continue those roots and cycles into 2026. Sweets, it would be internalized. I don't think masculinity is same as like friend zone. I don't think masculinity is a thing that we should be wanting to comply to. Hey, Andrew, wanting to comply to, wanting to hold on to. Because anything that you think about that you would say makes you more masculine doesn't. Like, quite literally. If someone wanted to say, hey, I think when someone's more confident, they're more masculine. They're not. They're just more confident. We don't need to rope that into being attached to your masculinity because it quite literally doesn't make you more masculine. I would say, Victoria, that women don't always have to be male-centered to have internalized misogyny. See ya. See you in a bit. But I think that that can be an example of it, yeah? Yeah, it's interesting. Like, it's been busy every day for the past week, and I've changed the prompt and it's gone quiet. The one before it seemed to be quite. Let's put it to the test. Let's see what happens if we go back to the original one. I can't quite understand why it would. Like, what is it? What is it on here that is so? Because not everybody talks about the bottom one. Sometimes the misandry, the protectors one was on the other one, just worded slightly differently. We'll have to see. Hey, user 28687754265666. If you could find the red flag emoji and just pop it at the end of your username there, that would be great for everyone. Thank you. I think the body count one was on the other one already. As a mic drop, Lorraine. Love that. Oh, I can't do that unseen. Oh. And I also don't want to create a prompt where men constantly talk. I like it when men bring her up when it's unprompted. Hey, Bethy, good to see you. Kate was being challenged on some misogynistic views that I had years ago. Not as far as like red pill or anything, but just a few things that I didn't realize. And then when unpacking that, wanted to learn more, understand more. And I wanted to have a purpose for TikTok. And to begin with, it was doing men's mental health lives. Actually, it was mental health lives, but I think 2 times a week I did men's mental health lives. Then slowly I started seeing more videos of red pill rhetoric popping up on my For You page. And so wanted to like stitch a few of those videos to just talk about how ridiculous things are that they're saying. And then it just kind of, you have that moment where one video does really well and you sort of think, like maybe this could, get the message out to more people, and it just snowballed from there, really. Appreciate it, Andrew. Yeah, next year I've got, did I say next year? It's because I keep thinking about the school year, but got some bookings in as well to be able to deliver anti-misogyny workshops to organizations, looking to approach schools as well. So that's kind of the route. That's the route, right? Is to go further and beyond this platform. No, Dusty. That would be concepts of internalized misogyny. You heard the crunch. Didn't even notice that. Bullfrog, yeah, I'm waiting. It says here, men only, request if you disagree. Like literally. Normally, there's loads of men in the queue waiting. So health, I don't know if you're aware, but you don't get money from doing videos that do well. So there was nothing to follow. Also, if you think that women have got toxicity to unpack, then that's something for women to address amongst women, right? Age and pronouns, Bullfrog, welcome.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, thank you. Age and pronouns?
I'm 25, he, him.
Thank you. Which prompt do you disagree with?
So it's actually on the one before this. That's when I kind of popped in to
Yep.
start talking. For the most part, I agree with you.
Okay.
The one thing that I do disagree with is that masculinity is misogyny.
Sure.
That is the one thing that I don't fully agree with. I think that there are cases where masculinity can promote misogyny, but I don't think that it's inherently one and the same.
Okay.
And I wanted to give a personal story from my life to kind of explain why I disagree with that, if that's okay.
We don't tend to do too many anecdotals here just because when we talk about misogyny, we have to recognize how it's systemic. So when we start talking about anecdotals, even if men try to talk about misandry, the greatest effect of them is not based on, one individual. So
It's less about that, and it's more about how I have, because you read one of my comments previously about how I love and I support women, and people had responded to me saying, like, if you love and support women, then you will do things and help them with the problems that they face, and I've used my masculinity to do so, because I do find myself very masculine. I'm very proud of that fact.
I would say
But
that, like, your personal opinion on that is great, but I'm trying to understand what is it about you that you've done that has made you more masculine.
it's nothing that makes me more masculine. It is just the fact of my masculinity, who I am as a person.
Which is
I think that masculinity, being a true masculine man, is supporting other people. I think people who,
that's
like
not.
men who,
So if women support other people, are they masculine?
no, I think as a man supporting other people, a man supporting women or protecting women or being there for women or other men in general is what makes a person masculine. I don't think masculinity is about specifically being necessarily big or strong or tough or whatever most men think masculinity is.
I
I
feel
think
like
masculinity is being a man, but being a kind man,
yeah. So
being a man who
I feel
helps
like
people.
I feel like this is proving my point in the sense that all of the things you've listed doesn't make you masculine. It makes you the things that you listed. So, for example, supporting other people means you are supportive. Being kind as a man just means you're kind. You trying to attach that to your masculinity is what needs to be detached because you're holding on to the concepts of misogyny through masculinity as a concept itself. And obviously, I have to
So
explain.
I don't understand what is your concept of masculinity then? Because you're saying that how I think that you are thinking of masculinity as purely a negative,
No, no, I'm not
because
saying that.
that's what it seems
I'm saying you
like.
haven't given me anything that actually represents masculinity in a factual sense, right? It's your opinion of what's made you masculine. But
Because you told me that I'm not allowed to tell a story. You told me I'm not allowed to use personal anecdotes.
I didn't say you're not allowed. I'm saying that we don't really do anecdotes here because it doesn't really support, masculinity on a systemic level, on, the ways that all men view it, right? So you've shared some things about yourself, which is fine. But as I've said, the things you have named just make you more of what they already are.
And
So
that's what I'm trying to say is I think that most men who claim masculinity are not being proper in what masculinity is. I think they have a negative idea on masculinity, and that's where your connection to misogyny comes from.
no,
I think what masculinity should be
that's not what I'm
is is kind and pure and has nothing to do with being big or strong, what most people connect masculinity to.
being kind and pure also doesn't have to be masculine. So therefore,
I'm saying like this is where you're kind of like pushing the misogyny, is because we're
no,
talking about
making a lot of
masculinity,
assumptions on what I'm trying to do with my words here, and that's not what I'm doing.
but
What
you're
I'm doing
doing the
is
same thing for me.
no, what I'm doing is using the words you've said to recognize that what you've described, you've now changed. You've said that being a kind and pure man is what you think is representation of proper masculinity. I'm saying that just makes you a kind man. That just makes you a supportive man. But you're choosing to say that that represents your masculinity because
Right. That's what I
conditionally.
think that masculinity should be.
Right, okay. But then again, like you don't need to use the word masculinity to attach to those characteristics or traits because if a woman was supportive or a woman was kind, you wouldn't call her masculine. You wouldn't say she's adopting masculine traits. So therefore, you're now trying to make it something that's specific to men if you are asserting masculinity towards men because you've said it makes you more of a, not more of a man, but a representation of a masculine man.
I'm not trying to say that it is only or exclusive to men, but we're talking about masculinity. So, of course, no, I'm not saying that women who are kind or supportive are masculine. Because we're talking about masculinity. We're not talking about women. We're talking about masculinity. There is
Okay.
there is femininity, which is the female form of masculinity. We're talking about masculinity. That's why I'm saying, as a man,
The male form of, is masculinity the male form of femininity as well then?
I would say yes. I think that that's like
So
masculine,
how
like
so
man.
why are you making why are you attaching traits in a way that they are then gendered?
You are the one who put the term masculinity there.
No, you did. You said that what makes
Your
you
first
masculine.
your first post said masculinity is misogyny.
You said yeah, I mean you haven't still let me get to explaining why. What I'm trying to do is focus on what you're saying with your words, which is you have said that a masculine man or an ideal version of that would be a man that is kind and supportive.
Yes.
And I'm saying that being kind and supportive is not something that makes you a masculine man. You are choosing it to be personally. That's your personal choice.
Because that's how I think masculinity should be. Yes.
Sure, yeah. But I'm saying that if you are trying to, like, I don't know what that does for you. What does it do for you to say that that makes you more masculine as opposed to just, I'm striving to be a kind and supportive individual? Why does that make you
Because
more or less masculine?
because I have
Hold on,
in my past
hold on.
used my masculinity to do so.
No, you haven't. You've used your kindness or you've used your supportive
No,
skills.
so you say you don't really like it, but I feel like the point's not getting across. I was in the army. In my time in the army, I'm a bigger guy. I have very broad shoulders. I'm very tall. I'm very wide. Okay. There was a person in basic training with me who was making other women feel uncomfortable. I used my size and my physical stature to put myself in between this man and the women he was making feel uncomfortable. I used my masculinity,
You used your physicality.
yes,
That's not masculinity.
to be supportive. But I do think I'm proud of
But you used
somebody in the comments said violence. No, it wasn't violence. I
okay.
never laid hands on him.
No, but you're using your body as a way to try and stop that, as opposed to your words.
Well, in the army, you can't really talk out of turn. I didn't really have a choice.
What? So you just stood in front?
Yeah, I stood in between them. I used my size to separate the two of them.
So all you did was just stand in front of two people. Like if people can't talk out of turn, the person you stood in front of couldn't talk back either. So it's not because he didn't want to. You're saying by military laws he couldn't.
Right, but he was making them feel uncomfortable by staring at them.
Okay.
And then they would come up to me and they would say, "Thank you for doing that." But I used my traits of what I see as like my masculinity, of my size and my stature and my kindness, to protect and support other people who were feeling uncomfortable in the situation.
Okay. Again, that's not masculinity. That's your view of it. That's what you think makes you masculine.
And that's where I think that we're disagreeing, is because I'm talking about what I think that masculinity should be across the board. I'm thinking that if more people saw masculinity as being kind and supportive, men wouldn't be awful 99% of the time.
I think if men just strove to being kind and supportive without needing to even define that as masculine, it wouldn't be any different. The difference is I still believe that holding on to masculinity is misogyny.
See,
And
I just disagree. I just disagree with
you
that.
haven't even heard me explain that because we've been caught up in the way that you're choosing to attach to kindness and being supportive. So let me hand over to Kitty and we might be able to get into it after. Hi, Kitty.
Hi, Kitty 42, she, her. Um, My question is, how has masculinity been helpful to society? In what ways? Because I can absolutely highlight how it's been harmful, but how's it been helpful? Because you seem to be really keen on clinging on to these traits of physicality and kindness, which all genders can have. You
I
get tall
understand.
women, you get tall, firm presenting people, you get kind people across all genders.
And
So,
I understand that full-heartedly. I'm not trying to say that being kind or being supportive or even being tall and large are inherently male traits. That's not what I'm trying to get across. I'm trying to get across of masculinity has been turned into something that it is gross. It has been turned into something that is disgusting. It has been turned into, like, masculinity by a large margin is seen as being aggressive and brutish and mean rather than being supportive and kind. I'm saying that I think
so
masculinity should not be tied to the negative. I'm saying that masculinity should be tied to positivity.
okay, so you described again just prior to that and acknowledged yes, they are very much human traits, physicality and kindness. How has masculinity ever helped society? Because you've mentioned it's turned into something aggressive, etc.
It has.
When has masculinity ever been helpful? When has it never had the stereotypes of associated with aggression and things?
I mean,
When
this is a
historically has
wonderful
it been
question.
helpful? That's pardon?
I said this is a wonderful question because, like,
Okay.
to be entirely honest with you, I don't have, historical evidence
Mm-hmm.
to denounce that it hasn't always been problematic. I think that, like, maybe there are certain instances where, my concept of masculinity, the more kind version, I think there are absolutely instances where that has gone a very long way and helped a lot of people. But to I don't have any historical evidence to back up that it hasn't, like, masculinity as a whole hasn't always been negative or has helped in society. So that's a very good question.
Okay, thank you for that acknowledgement. So I guess my next question would be why, and if you don't feel comfortable answering this, absolutely, it's completely respect your autonomy. But what is it that seems to be driving you to attach, however you view masculinity, to drive it towards something positive, given a lot of the things you've described and you have acknowledged are actually human traits in terms of
Hmm.
physicality, qualities like kindness, caring, compassion?
So the question is, like, why am I, like, so headstrong in that?
Yeah, because you've acknowledged they are very much human traits, but and also you've acknowledged that, well, you can't say masculinity hasn't been harmful. I mean, it has been very harmful under this is why we have a patriarchy. There's
No,
nothing
absolutely.
positive about masculinity historically. My background's in sociology and politics, and I've done a lot of studies and things in this.
Hmm.
And there's very little positivity attached to that. So I'm just wondering, for you personally, there does seem to be a real driving force for you to try and reframe it and attach it to something positive, um, as
For me,
opposed to
it goes back to one thing for me,
okay.
is when we are tying this. Now, again, I 110% agree. There are a majority of men who tie their masculinity to negative things.
Mm,
But I think that when we push a narrative of saying that masculinity is bad, but not teaching how to make masculinity positive, I think that that is harmful in and of itself. Saying masculinity is bad when people tie it to aggression and dominance and anger, 110% justified. But I think that we're doing a disservice by saying that and then not explaining how to make it better. To say that masculinity is misogyny, if you are tying it to negative traits, is one thing, but it is a better thing to say that and then explain how to fix it. Because I don't think that masculinity is bad. Sorry, you're raising your hand.
Yeah, the only reason why I want to interject on that point, because again, the reason why I say is two reasons. Sorry, one is you've just admitted that answering Kitty's question there's been no historical evidence of when masculinity was good. And so that's the reason why my message on this is to detach from masculinity because of how negative it's been for those 10 to 13,000 years, right? Rather than reframing, we could actually get rid of it because that doesn't need to define or validate you as a man. You know, like the words you gave as characteristics of what you think is healthy masculinity, they are great on their own. They don't need to be tied into masculinity, because what ends up happening is, I know you're not saying that this, but I'm talking about the men that do, right? When you have a woman who is maybe in a position of like a CEO or a manager, some of the skills that she might have acquired to get to that point is being assertive, being confident. These are the characteristics that a lot of men associate to masculinity. And when women exhibit them, they will call women in their masculine and deem them as less attractive. Why would I want to be with a woman who's in a masculine energy? And I'm saying that this is part of why it's been a harmful concept, because they've always been used, as Kitty said there, to shame women and femme-presenting people in the opposite way. Similar to, if a man expresses his emotions, if a man is caring, he's considered feminine. He gets given that label of being someone who doesn't have masculine energy, he's low T, etc. And they're used as shaming tactics. That's where we see the big knock-on effect of men then striving towards, how can I be masculine? Because I don't want to be on the opposite side of society where I get shamed for it. I think more harm comes from it than good. But Kitty also raised her hand, and then we will come to you, Bullfrog. Hi, Kitty.
Hi. I was about to do medium pronouns again. It's just automatic now. So suppose it's just more of a question now, and then I'll drop. Bullfrog, is the title of masculinity important to you and your identity? Is that something why maybe you feel personally that's a bit of a driving force to reshift it towards something more positive, or things that you associate with positivity and what you associate with masculinity, or what you'd like masculinity to be? Is that a title you feel is important for you?
I do feel like the title of masculine is something that's important to me, but I think that it's important to state that it is, as we said before, like, it is what I think masculinity should be. I don't find masculinity important to me in the sense of aggression or dominance or whatever, because I don't like to feel that way. But I do like the thought of like seeing myself and being like, you know, masculinity is something that I like, but I enjoy my concept of masculinity. I think that we should, rather than just blatantly saying that masculinity as it is isn't good, we should be saying what you see as masculinity is not good, and here's how we can fix it, so that we don't have to get rid of the concept of masculinity, but we can change it to make it something better.
Okay. Can I just say one last thing, and then I'll drop as well. No, I appreciate you being honest there, Bullfrog. So thank you for that. for me, what I'm hearing is this is what happens living under a patriarchal system. It's patriarchal conditioning, which has led men to, well, it's gender roles, and it's that push of gender roles and what it means to be masculine. And then if people, I know you mentioned, obviously, I think you've been in the army before as well, which is very much a male-dominated environment, and obviously gender roles, masculinity, the conditioning aspects of that will ultimately lead to many men and mass-presenting people to have that attachment of wanting that title, when ultimately all the traits that you have mentioned associated with that title of masculinity are just human traits.
I do see exactly what you're saying, and I agree.
Yeah.
Like, what I'm saying is human traits. It's what anybody can have, but also at the same time, like, we're taking this idea of, like, there are women who are in positions of power, who are CEOs, who, like, I had people when I was in the military, I had people who were above me, my sergeants, my officers, who were women, and they still like to be considered as feminine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm not saying this doesn't apply also to women and femme-presenting people's relationship with the concept of femininity, but again, it's all social conditioning and gender roles, and a lot of it has been harmful. Gender roles, essentially. Anyhow, I'll leave you both to continue if you wish. I do want to say, Bullfrog, thank you for being respectful, and I really appreciate you taking time to give really considered answers. Chat, I am going to ask. No, oh,
Your
thank you,
questions were
Bullfrog.
awesome.
Thank you very much. That's really kind. Apologies for interrupting there. I'm just going to address the chat and then I'll drop. Chat, please be respectful. Okay, that's all I'm asking. This is Bullfrog has been very respectful, has been very honest here. This is an educational space, so please just be respectful. Take a break if needed. Bullfrog also as well. I'm not saying you have been, but just, focus on the conversation up here. Don't worry about the chat. The chat's its own system, shall we say.
I've been trying not to look at there.
I
There
know.
are some people who are being a little bit rude in chat, and I'm just trying to have a conversation. So I've been trying to not pay a lot of attention down there.
The mods are on it. We allow respectful challenging, but I just want a respect reminder all round for everyone. But I'll leave yous to discuss that. And thanks again, both of yous.
Much love, Kitty.
Bye.
Bye bye. So Bullfrog, I'll get into the history of it, right? So, there's a lot of well, Kitty was up here as well. There's a mixed view between when patriarchy existed, right? My understanding of it is roughly 10 to 13,000 years ago, due to, and I know it's agricultural, I had to look it up to try and get an understanding from my perspective, but I understand how it could be from others. The agricultural revolution, which is when there was a historic shift of nomadic hunter-gatherer lifestyles to settled farming communities, which introduced land ownership, surplus wealth, and fixed property that reshaped human social structures. So with that, essentially what's being said is when we have land ownership is not for women to own. We start to see how men own land because men are also the ones who are going off and, invading, etc., whatever it might be, right, within those communities. Starting to see that women are more valuable for the more children they can have, because then the more, and preferably boys, by the way, as if there was a choice, because then what that does is it increases the workforce. And by increasing the workforce, you get more output, more resources, more wealth, more power, more dominance. That's then shown through men having those characteristics as being more masculine. And I'm saying that because that's where masculinity originated from, it originated during a time where that was turned into oppression of women and girls. At the time, they might not have known that that's what it was, but ultimately women were silenced. They were pushed into the role of being a mother. They didn't end up having rights. They weren't able to work or at least get paid for the work. That went straight to their husbands. Then we see the divide. So for me, I'm saying that holding on to that masculinity is holding on to the roots of misogyny and how it started. Now, someone today who doesn't maybe know anything about that history, sure, as far as they're concerned, healthy masculinity would be great. I just personally believe, and it's okay if we disagree on it, I personally believe that we can actually strive for characteristics and personality attributes where we don't have to put a label on how much of a man it makes you or how much of a woman it makes you. That's why I think getting rid of the term is more helpful than not, because the things you named as characteristics are fantastic, but ultimately let them be fantastic for anyone who has them. You know, like I personally think it's more beneficial for men to detach from striving towards being masculine as opposed to, hey, what characteristics do you think would be great to have? Like, do you think being more confident, do you think having, emotional intelligence would be amazing? So I don't entirely disagree with what you're saying, because I hear that what you're trying to say is that we need to reshape what masculinity should be in a healthy way that everyone agrees upon. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I'm just obviously pushing for something different, which is to just remove it, because I don't think it's needed.
I do see where you're coming from, and I do understand the concept that you're bringing, to the conversation. But just looking at it in, from my perspective is like I do enjoy when a person would look at me and say this person looks masculine. I do enjoy that. I like how that does make me feel. And I'm absolutely sure that there are some women who feel the very same way when somebody is like, this looks like a very feminine woman. And I think that it can be helpful in the long term to keep these concepts and these ideas, but to change them to make them positive for everybody involved, rather than just scrapping them and completely getting rid of them, to make them something worth respecting and worth enjoying and liking about yourself as a person. Like I say, I enjoy being masculine, or I enjoy people saying that I look like a masculine man because I'm, large and tall. And then the comments are like saying things like, so you want to be seen as masculine, or this, that, and the other thing. And it's like, yes, in a way I do like that, but I think that we can make it something better.
I suppose what you're describing there is an external validation rather than internal, and I think that when we start to strive for external validation, that's when we move towards a society where we gravitate towards the majority, because we don't then want to stand out for, in our eyes, the wrong reason, even though it's not. So for example, like I have men who say to me a lot that I'm a feminine man. I get the impression if you were called that, you wouldn't like it.
I have been called that in the past. After the army, I got hurt. I got hurt in the army.
Does it bother you? Like, does it? Do you feel anything negative, or does that affect your feelings at all if you get called that and you're perceived like that?
It depends on the way it's said. Because after I got hurt, the way that my wife and I talked about it is I stay home and I take care of the kids, and my wife goes to work because that's what she wants to do. She wants to work, and my legs don't work anymore, so I stay home. And a lot of people are like, that is a very feminine role. I have been called feminine, and there are a lot of ways that I don't mind being called feminine. Like when I had gone out, and I would be out with a lot of my women friends, and what's that?
How wouldn't you like to be called feminine? In what way?
If they're using feminine as a derogatory, because I don't think that it is. I don't think being feminine is a derogatory, but people try to use it as one.
So I feel like you're saying exactly what I said earlier, but not quite seeing it, right? That's the point I'm making, is that because people use it as a way to insult the other gender from it, that's why I think that we are holding on to holding on to descriptors that are already causing harm to everyone. Because what's masculinity to you might not be masculinity to me and to the next man, etc., etc. So if it's something we can never universally agree on, which I genuinely don't think anyone will, and it's always going to be used as a way to cause harm to people, if we actually remove it and we go up to someone and say, do you know what? You're a really caring man. We can almost go, cool, that's a good thing, right? But when it's the opposite and it's like, hey, do you know what? You're really feminine. We know there's a difference between the two. You know,
But people have used that, like saying like I'm very kind and caring and calling me feminine, and that doesn't upset me. It's when they do things like saying that I'm feminine for staying home that I don't like, because that is a derogatory way to say it, because that's not a feminine thing. Staying home and taking care of the house should not be a quote unquote feminine trait.
what traits do you think make someone feminine?
I mean, for me, it falls under a very similar aspect to what I think that masculinity should be. You know, if most other people will look at feminine and say what I said masculinity is feminism. Saying that being kind and being supportive is being feminine.
Okay, but you recognize that femininity and masculinity have historically always been used as a way to attach to gender roles, right?
Yeah, I see that absolutely.
Cool. So if you're now sitting here saying that you think femininity is the same as masculinity in terms of the characteristics, then there's nothing different about the two, meaning the point of masculinity and femininity there is literally pointless, because you're saying it's exactly the same. The reason why it was obviously created was because it was to show that if you want to be more of a man, you do this. If you want to be more of a woman, you do this. And they're different. That's why the segregation of it, or the separation of the two genders, was created in that way from those historical times of patriarchy. So you now saying, well, I think femininity is being supportive and kind, and I think masculinity is being supportive and kind, you haven't really made masculinity or femininity a reason for existing, because they're both the exact same thing.
But I do think that there is like we should strive to make it better rather than just getting rid of it. Somebody said in the comments, he seems to recognize the term, wants to keep the descriptor for personal validation. Yeah, I do like the validation that it gives me. I like that. But I think that we should make the terms better. I think that we should make it better, because I'm, again, sure that there are women out there who enjoy the validation of being called feminine.
Okay, let me bring Staples in as well, if that's okay. And try to not read the chat, because otherwise it's like...
I don't know how to turn it off, so
You can swipe.
Yeah. Oh, okay, yeah, you can swipe it to the left, I think.
Yeah, and it will hide the comments for you. So 4040, and I don't look at the comments while I'm up here either, if it helps. So don't think of it as anything to do with other than I can't concentrate on both at once. Mm-hmm. I just wanted to ask, like, it's similar to what everyone else has been saying. In the unfortunate situation where you weren't in this world anymore, how are you going to want people to remember you? Are you going to want them to say, he was such a masculine man? Or are you going to want them to say, he was the best husband, he was the best friend, he was my best friend, he was always there when I needed him, he was caring and cool? No one's mentioning these gendered qualities when they're talking about you. It's the people whose opinion you care about generally don't see those qualities.
I hear you, but I do think, like, you know, people are going to be like, he was a good man. Do people if people call me a good man,
well,
is that misogyny?
No, that's just literally you identify as the gender you were born as. So that's just referring to you in the way you would, in the same way that Lex asked you your pronouns when you came up. That's just respecting your gender identity rather than saying they were a good it or a good person. You know, it's giving it, when someone's talking about you in that context, it's just giving a bit more knowledge to that subject. None of that is to say either of those traits are good. The word that is important in that is good, not man or woman or they. It's all about if you want to have it sounds very much like you are a considerate person and you want to be recognized in that way and that you want to care for others. So none of those are, as you've said yourself, they're not things that are exclusive to anyone. And those are the things you should be striving to be seen as, rather than attaching them to this ideology of, if you had children, they're not going to say, I love my parent because of this. You want them to come to you because of your relationship, not because of the gender that you are.
And I absolutely, I want people to come to me and approach me because of what I can provide, not because of me as a man. Like, I want people to approach me because, like, oh, he has a good personality, he is funny, he is kind, not because, oh, this is a man or whatever. But I do like when people do say, like, you are a good man, but they don't mean it in like the you are a good person who happens to be a man. Oh, sorry, go on.
That's all right. So here's the other interesting thing that I've just kind of recognized, right? You said that you do experience some validation from someone calling you masculine.
Yes.
But the interesting thing is, their view of masculinity might be different to yours.
Mm-hmm.
And so while you're striving for being kind and supportive because you think that's what makes you more or describes your masculinity, someone else might think that it's entirely different. And so the compliment they're giving is not actually validating what your perception of masculinity is, it's theirs. So you're also potentially misconstruing what the compliment is representing, because masculinity is being described by anyone as anything. So, like, unless you're choosing for it to mean that it has to be the things you think it is, technically they could be complimenting you on something entirely different, and then they're not actually complimenting you on your masculinity because you don't think that's what makes you masculine.
That is a wonderful point. What I will say, though, is that I surround myself with people who do think in a very similar way of my thinking. I don't surround myself with other men who think that masculinity is about being aggressive or being dominant.
No,
So
it can be complimentary, by the way. As in, like, someone else could say, like, oh, you're really masculine, and they could be thinking because you're very confident. Right? It can still be complimentary, but my point is that it might not be the compliment that you think it is because it's a different characteristic that they are identifying in you. You know, like, they might find you very honest, and they might go, oh, he's really masculine, because for them, an honest man is a masculine man. And you might be taking that away thinking, yeah, like, this is what they think of me, and it's not going to be the same.
Right. And I only hear that from my friends, from the people who I am close to, and they do view it the same way that I do.
Okay.
Is what I don't hear it from strangers, and so I don't when if a stranger were to say it, then yes, absolutely, I don't know what their concept is, so I don't know where their version of masculinity is coming from or what they're commenting on my perceived masculine traits for them. But I hear it from my friends who we have had these conversations about what masculinity should be seen as. So when I do get these compliments, it is about these good traits that I think should be tied to masculinity rather than the negative ones.
Can I ask, and this could be wildly off base, but I'm speaking from my experience here, so it could be completely different to yours, but you mentioned obviously that your physical circumstances have changed.
Yes.
As a woman that's become disabled in her like as I've aged, I have to, if I'm completely honest with myself, I have quite a lot of internalized ableism where I worry about things that where labels can mean quite a lot to me, and that I suddenly can't do things that I used to be able to do. So I therefore overcompensate and overhang on to these labels that I'm like, oh, I don't want people to think I'm less of a good mum because I can't do this anymore. So I can completely sympathize with that desire if it is indeed linked to anything like that. But what I have to be reminded by some amazing people in this space and loved ones is, one, firstly, I wouldn't judge anybody else in that way, but secondly, the way I can be there for people and advocate for people just becomes a different way that I can do that. So you can still be a great partner, a great things, and I realise you're attached to this label currently, and perhaps I'd suggest there's a bit of unpacking to do with that. But like, you mentioned obviously yours and your wife's responsibilities have changed. That's something that I can completely identify with. My husband now does, like, we both work, but he does all the things that people would consider historically feminine. Like, he does the washing, he does the school runs, he does all of those things, and that's because my physicality has changed in that. And I advocate for women in ways that men can't, by being there for them in spaces that perhaps they wouldn't trust men, and that's not to get a sneaky little backhanded thing in. It's just in certain situations people will trust other people. And so I find ways to do that, but it's about who I am as a person and what's important to me. And when I boiled down to it was never about if I'm a good woman or if I'm a good parent. It all boiled down to if I'm a good human, like, and if I'm setting that role model to my friends, to my parents, because as parents, I want to continue to learn, and I expect the same of my parents, and as a friend, as a ally, because whilst I'm a woman, I'm not in a lot of other, and disabled, I'm not in a lot of other marginalised communities. I'm a cis white woman, so I benefit from a lot of privilege. So there are ways that you can advocate and be all of those things. And I completely understand that labels can be hugely important when you've had a big shift in identity, but it's perhaps unpacking that and untangling them and wondering if you think about same schmex couples, like both of those aren't going to perform the same role in the relationship. So like we're all both, and this isn't a criticism of you, we've spoken about it in quite a heteronormative manner so far.
Absolutely.
But and so you have to acknowledge that people won't, in relationships, those things aren't going to exist either, so there's not going to be one that's that role potentially, or it's all about just seeing what you're good at. In a relationship, it's about a partnership, and then as a human, it's about being, this version of yourself that you want to be. But I would argue, yes, you might have attached the word man to that before, and your friends might, just because it's become a shorthand between you. But I'm sure if their friendship, you seem to have quite a high standard of friendship, and you seem to want to have a really strong moral compass. So I would suggest that perhaps if you perhaps removed that from your vocabulary, they would, and you would realise that it's perhaps just become this word as a placeholder for a lack of a better word.
Honestly, you're probably 100% right. That was incredibly well put, and I hadn't really thought about it like that.
I would say I hadn't thought about it like that until I came to this space about a year ago and learnt from many of the people in this space. And as someone that is disabled, I can tell you the voice notes that we send each other every day where we're like, are you okay? No, are you okay? And we have to leave each other 6 before we'll all admit if we're okay or not. And it's not because we don't trust each other or we're not vulnerable, but we're also used to doing these labels and the performative things. And that's why it's so important. And that's with people we love. Imagine how many barriers we have with ones that we don't know. So it's all about breaking it down. And that's what Lex is trying to do in this space, make it so we can all have this shorthand with each other so that we can all support each other in this world that gets increasingly difficult.
No,
as Charlotte says, we're all really bloody stubborn.
I think that you were absolutely right. I do, honestly, you brought it up and I've never really connected the two, but I do think that it comes from my disability. I think that my injury and my disability is kind of the thing that is striving me to hold on to the term of masculinity.
I'd really advocate for Kitty isn't who was up before. She's much more when she mentioned to you about her work. I'm not going to give too much of her information away, but she is specialised in ableism as well, and she's one of the greatest people that's helped me unpack a lot of this. And I used to think that if I admitted how much I was struggling, it would all come crashing down on me, and that just admitting that tiny bit of vulnerability would bring it all down. And it was really hard for me to connect. And if it was your friend, I bet you wouldn't even think about doing it, and you'd have that conversation. And I do think it's because you've come into this space from a place of good faith, so you've been able to have that conversation, whereas obviously if you're in a space or talking to someone which you don't have that good faith with, you would naturally be a bit more defensive about that. And so it's about doing these things in safe environments.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate you. I really appreciate you for just everything that you said. You really put a lot into perspective for me. And I thank you as a human being. I appreciate everything that you've said.
And I thank you for making that purposeful choice of word that you just did as well. That's very respectful, and it's very nice to hear that. And I would just encourage you to come back to your space, because everything I've just said I've stolen from Lex and Kitty and other mods in this space. So it's just that I
I'm
put it together
definitely
in a
going to be
different way.
coming
So
back to this space. Yes.
yeah, please do follow. And Lex has got some amazing, like, there's some episodes that you can watch of different lives, but also there's longer form podcast episodes where there is talking about guests with different abilities and things like that. And Kitty is one of the people and talks about the way she advocates in that way quite a lot as well. So I can't recommend it enough.
No, I think both of you, everybody, honestly, everybody who's been involved in this, I didn't realize how much of an issue I had and where it came from, but now I do, and this is definitely something I'm going to have to work on in myself. So I really do appreciate everybody involved who helped me learn some things.
Well, be gentle with yourself, and my messages are open, and I'm sure as are other people's in the space, but I'll let them offer you that themselves.
No, thank you guys very much. I'll probably hop off the
Same.
call now. Thank you guys.
Thanks, Bullfrog. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Wow, Staples. Whew. I'm in the feels. I'm in the feels.
It's almost like you, Kitty, and Charlotte, and Lizzie Lulu, and all the people in the space have rubbed off on me. Don't know.
You need to take a lot of credit for yourself. We're not letting
And
you get away with
Darian
that.
and all the yeah, and that's why, chat, whenever you think we're being over the top about ableism or inclusivity, that's why, because that's the sort of space we want to protect.
Yeah.
So shall we just all leave now and do a battle? Thanks, love you all, bye.
Thanks, Staples.
Speak to you later. Bye bye.
All right. Wow. I don't know what to say. I'm genuinely